Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Deuteronomy. Today we're looking specifically at Deuteronomy chapter 1. Now, as Moses begins his words to the children of Israel, he's going to start by sort of helping them to remember their history. And the first thing he wants to remind them of is why they've had to spend 40 years in the wilderness. Now remember, this is the new generation of Israelites. These folks have grown up in the wilderness. For 40 years they've spent in their wilderness wanderings. They knew the promised land was one day going to be theirs, but they had to wait until the time was right. They had to wait till the old generation passed away. They might wonder why. And so Moses is reminding them why they had to spend so long in the wilderness. So in chapter 1, let's begin reading at verse 6. Now the Lord our God said to us at Horeb. Now Horeb, that's the mountain, that's another name for Mount Sinai. You remember after they left Egypt, after the Exodus, they went to Sinai, received the Ten Commandments, came into covenant with God. The Lord our God said to us at Horeb, or at Sinai, you stayed long enough at this mountain. Break camp, advance into the hill country of the Amorites. Go to all the neighboring peoples in the Arabah, in the mountains, in the western foothills, in the Negev, along the coast, to the land of Canaan, and to Lebanon, as far as the great river, the Euphrates. See, I have given you the land. Go in and take possession of the land that the Lord has swore he would give to your fathers. So reminded them that after they received the covenant, after they'd been formed into the people of God, the Lord said, it's time. Proceed into the promised land. Take possession of the land God has promised to you. They weren't supposed to spend 40 years in the wilderness. The Israelites were to move into the land and take possession. But what happened? What happened? What prevented their taking possession of the land? Why do they instead spend all these years in the wilderness? Verse 26, Moses says, but you were unwilling to go up. You rebelled against the command of the Lord your God. You grumbled in your tents and you said, the Lord hates us. So he brought us up out of Egypt to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us. Where can we go? Our brothers have made our hearts melt in fear. They say the people are stronger and taller than we are. The cities are large with walls that go up to the sky. We even saw the Anakites there. You remember what happened, don't you? As they prepared to go into the land, Moses had sent 12 spies to reconnoiter the land, to spy it out. And they came back and they said, it's a good land. But the inhabitants are strong. They're giants. We're like grasshoppers before them. They have fortified cities with high walls. We can't take this land. We'll never pull it off. We cannot do it. And so the hearts of the Israelites melted in fear. And they said, God must hate us. He's sending us up to Canaan to be destroyed. Moses says, as a people, you rebelled against God. I told you not to be afraid. I told you the Lord would be with you. He had just delivered you from Egypt. He had defeated the mighty Egyptian army in the Red Sea. What do you have to be afraid of? But you were afraid, and you rebelled against the Lord. And so the Lord passed judgment on you. He said, you will not possess the land, your children will. For 40 years you'll wander in the wilderness. So all this generation that was disobedient will die, but your children will go in to possess the land. Now Moses is speaking to those children. They're grown up now. He says the reason you had to grow up in the wilderness is because your parents were afraid to obey the commands of God. They were afraid to follow his will for their life. They melted in fear before the Canaanites. And so you spent 40 years in the wilderness. Now the lesson is clear. Don't you be afraid. Trust God. Believe that he will give you the land. Have courage and go take possession of the land. Sometimes we need to be reminded of times in the past when we failed. We need to be reminded of times when we didn't believe as we should have, when our hearts were filled with anxiety. The remedy for that is to trust in the Lord. So now Moses speaks to this generation, says, don't repeat the mistakes of your parents. They didn't believe God, and so they had to spend all these years in the wilderness. You believe God. You believe God, and be ready to go in and take possession of the land. You know, the best thing for us to do always is to trust God. His word is faithful. His word is dependable. We can rely on him. When he says go, we should go because He always prepares the way for us. So Moses is simply reminding the Israelites, your parents made a terrible mistake. They failed to believe that God could give them the land. And so they never got to possess it. You believe. You believe. Go in and take possession of the land. Hope you join us tomorrow. We'll look at chapter 2. Moses has more to say to them as he's recounting their history. So join us next time for our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Deuteronomy.